Coming up on today's episode, NASA lands on Mars again, electrics take over the LA Auto Show, and Boring Company gets hit by some FUD by NBC. Welcome to the Our Ludicrous Future podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all the future technologies and people changing the world today to make our tomorrows totally ludicrous. I'm Joe Scott from the Answers with Joe YouTube channel, and with me is Tim Dodd.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut from the Everyday Astronaut, all of it and things. And also with us is Ben.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Ben Sullins from Teslanomics. How are you guys doing? Have a good Thanksgiving?
I missed you guys. I really did. I missed having, this is what, we're on 11 now?
Episode 11?
Oh, yeah, 11. Did I say that? I may have missed that.
I don't think you said it, but now we are.
Wouldn't say you missed it, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, man. How was everyone's Thanksgiving? Any crazy drama or cars breaking or anything? Because I kind of have a story.
It was windy in San Diego. You know?
I was in Boise.
15-mile-an-hour winds, it's kind of rough.
Ooh, look out.
The temperature got down to 69.
Ooh,
it's terrible.
Shut up, guys.
I think we're getting half an inch of rain over this weekend, and it's a national emergency here.
Oh, why don't I tell you guys my stories about weather and things?
Sure, let's just talk about you.
So we took the Model 3 on the first real road trip since we bought it. And of course, our first road trip was pushing it to the absolute limits because the route we took, we were going from our hometown in Northeast Iowa, Cedar Falls, down to St. Louis. And there's only one supercharger on that entire route, and it's only 80 miles from our house. So we had a 244-mile gap between that supercharger and our house. And for those of you curious, the Model 3 has about a 310-mile range. So that's doable when it's nice weather. But the problem is it was 35 degrees or about 0 Celsius degrees. Woo! So we were pushing it to the limit. As a matter of fact, the car, on the way down, the car said we'd get there with about 7%, which we ended up pulling in with about 7% range. But when we left St. Louis, the car said, so we totally topped off at a supercharger on the way to make it home on that 244-mile stretch. And the car said, as we left, that we will not make it. It just said, nope, don't do it.
Yeah, turn around.
Turn around. And
Danger, Will Robinson.
That was the first time I've had some serious range anxiety. And that actually was well below freezing. So I think it was only 25 or 30 degrees on the way back. And we had a little bit of a headwind. So we took it pretty easy. We went 60 instead of 65, which was a bit frustrating. But then we found a semi to draft. And I know there's some controversy behind, because Mythbusters did a whole thing about drafting and all that stuff. But we set autopilot at the minimum distance behind a semi for about 60 miles. About 100 kilometers. And believe it or not, we ended up getting 244 watt hours per mile. And as soon as the semi left, we were at 310.
Oh, wow.
So about a 25%, and we had a long enough data set to actually collect, and actually really turn over that data. So it really does make a difference on the minimum distance with autopilot, which I felt was pretty safe. It's about 100 feet, so about 30 meters behind a semi, based on the markings on the lane markings and everything. It's about 100 feet. So yeah, it makes a big difference. And we got there with, again, about 6% on the way back up.
So I'm looking here. It looks like there's one in Davenport and one in Springfield. Did you not stop at those?
We go straight south. We straight down from Cedar Falls, taking what's highway, I believe it's 27 after. It's originally 380 and then becomes
so
27.
You don't head over into Illinois.
No, that would have been a 9-hour route as opposed to a 5.5-hour route.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Because that's what it said, 8 hours here on the Tesla website.
Yeah.
Not accounting for
doing that.
Traffic and
so
stuff.
We push it to the limit.
That's awesome. And so did you get the snowflake icon and any of that stuff because it was so cold?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it even recommended staying below 60 mile an hour to ensure.
Yeah, that's common. I've seen that a lot.
But the good news is we could have at any point pulled over. Looking at like PlugShare, there's plenty of 110 outlets, which would have been very painful. There's even a couple 220 outlets that could have, made sure that we at least got to that next supercharger. Like we weren't going to be stranded, but it still was a little bit like this might take us an extra hour. Potentially.
I have a similar story. I went to Julian, California, which is just about an hour up in the mountains east of San Diego, hour and a half or whatever. And I went out there in my Model S 60, which only has a 200-mile range. It's only 40 or so miles, but it's like all uphill into the mountains. So you just, it just eats range. And we went kind of on a whim. My wife's dad was in town for Thanksgiving. We're all hanging out. My son was sleeping. And we're like, hey, you guys want to go to Julian? Just literally as we were on the freeway about to get off and go home. We're like, yeah, let's go. So we just head out there. For me, I'm just not even thinking it's an issue. But when we get there, PlugShare and everything, the only like EV charging was a 110 outlet, like behind a dumpster on a light pole kind of thing. But then thankfully I looked in the car because you can look for destination chargers as well. And there happened to be one there at the Orchard Inn or something like that in Julian. And yeah, we went there. We had to pay $25 to use it for the hour because we weren't guests of the hotel, but whatever, hallelujah, because without it, it was telling us the same thing. Like because when you do navigation, it'll also, unless you remove it, typically by default, it'll say your percentage back to where you started from. And for us, it was like negative 10%. So there was like a very low chance we'd make it.
Do you think you could have almost gained range going all the way back down?
Yes.
Or is that just a risk you're not willing to take?
Well, it will factor that in because a couple weeks ago I did go camping and it was a similar situation where it was kind of uphill most of the way. And I think it was 40 miles or so home. And my car had like 30 miles on it of range that it said. But half of that 40 miles on the way home are downhill. So when I was coming home then at the bottom of that hill after, half of the way there, I started with 30 miles or so. I ended up with like 34 miles. Oh, so it totally works. So typically the navigation in the car will factor in hills and regen braking and all those kind of things. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's traffic, there's weather, there's a million things that can affect it, but typically it does a good job. So when it said negative 10, I was like, yeah, so we got to figure something out.
So when you said that you charged at a destination charger at a hotel and it cost you $25, how does that work? Did you just have to go up to like the front desk and say, hey, can I use your charger? Or
yeah, we were being good citizens. We literally could have just plugged in and walked away.
Oh, okay. So it's the honor system.
Yeah, but there was a little sign there that said, hey, if you're not a guest, please come see us about charging info. And we went up there. They said, yeah, it's $25. But they also gave us a gift certificate to the inn for the same amount. So we hadn't planned on coming and staying there, but we were like, hey, okay. So if we go use that, then it was free. But yeah, and that's typical, like, I know in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I go a lot, they have a charger at the W Hotel, and you can use it, but you have to pay the valet $20. So it's pretty common.
What's funny is you say $25, and my first thought is like, wow, that's steep. But then I'm going, that's about what it's like to fill up a gas tank of a car, at least,
Yeah.
So,
but that is kind of one of those. It's a little bit of a jab in the side when you do have to pay for something that.
But you know what?
Can get for free.
I was. More than happy to do it. Because the rate of charge I'm getting, was like 30 something miles of range per hour versus 3. So it was like, cool. Like I came back because I think when we got there, I don't know, we had like 20 something miles and I came back and we had, 80 miles of charge. So yeah, but that it's an interesting feeling. I think the longer you have your Tesla, the more adventurous you get with that. And I had a 3-year-old with me, so it's just you as an adult. It's like whatever.
I know that 244 mile stretch is definitely about the furthest you'll find, at least in like the populated regions of the United States. But I'm excited for holes like that to be filled because it really is pretty. You get pretty anxious when you're looking and you're like, you're not going to make it. It's like I don't want to see that.
Yep. And most places with the destination chargers, they're pretty understanding. Like in something that just needs to be said is if you ever go to a place because they have a destination charger, let them know. Let them know, like, I am here because of this, because that does make a difference. You know, when I told the people there, like, hey, yeah, we may come back and stay now. You know, they're like, that to them is like, yes, it was worth it. So I think putting that out there, you know, helps
and if they have restaurants there, then you might wind up spending money in their restaurant or their, I started to say, or their bar, but you probably shouldn't be loading up on drinks before you get back in your car. But
passengers can.
But I agree. Like they need to know that that's actually something that can help their business. You know?
It totally can.
Even when we were supercharging, we ended up having a pretty nice dinner. So it might offset the price of gas because, you know, you end up, we had to eat anyway. You know, it was lunchtime when we supercharged.
Yeah, you would have been spending that money anyway.
We would have been spending that money anyway. But yeah, I mean, they got us though. But it was great though. I mean, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I used the supercharger for the first time. I don't know if I talked about it last time or not, but we went to go visit my wife's grandmother, and we probably could have made it all the way back, but just for kicks, it was like we're passing by one anyway. Let's just go ahead and sit there, and it was a great experience. You know, I mean, I'd never done it before, but I'd seen enough videos about it. You know, but I plugged in and just kind of sat back down in the car. I was only going to get like 50 miles just to make sure, you know, that I got back all right, and my wife and I are sitting there and we're listening to music and we're talking, and next thing I know, I look up and it's already like 70 or 80 miles in, and I'm going, well, I guess we can go if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess let's go. And
but speaking of wives and Teslas, my wife did have an incident with the Tesla. Just a little one, and I'm guilty of the same thing because it's almost happened to me twice already, and we kind of talked about it once with summoning. But we have a problem with our auto close and auto open garage door on the Tesla. For some reason, I've tried different like geolocations for where the garage is according to the Tesla, because it opens and closes your garage door based on GPS location. The problem is wherever I set it, it seems to want to close the garage door earlier than I would prefer. I'd want it to close the garage door when I'm like in the alleyway, like leaving the house for sure. It closes it as soon as the nose is pretty much out of the garage. Even if I change like the distance to 80, 90 feet, that's only for opening, auto closing it does it no matter what, 20 feet. And so what happened is either it's one of two things. Either it, for some reason, thought we were already out, but I think it bases it off movement. I don't think it bases backwards, you're 20 feet off of GPS. I think what might have happened is the profile, the user profile, my wife does have to click that every time because she has the easy entry set up. So she'll click her user profile. But that's entirely surrounded. Literally, the icon for the user profile is surrounded by your home link setup. So if you accidentally fat finger it, you know,
you should
hit it.
You should be, when she hits the brake, it should automatically go into a profile, right?
Unless it goes to the last one. It would have gone to I think it would have gone to me potentially.
Gotcha. Dude, I disabled that, so that sucks. But imagine having two Teslas doing that. It's just completely impossible. So when we got our Model 3, we disabled it entirely because I used to have it from my Model S. And then what would happen a lot is I would leave the garage door open because I just wouldn't even think about closing it. I would just drive off.
Right.
And my wife would come home like, what the hell? What's going on?
Right. So what ended up happening is it started closing just as she's like backing out. And, you know, you get in such a habit. Yep. And you can't really tell when the thing's closing only a little bit, you know, and it ended up just perfectly lining up. It caught the very tail of the trunk. It actually took the garage door off the tracks.
Oh, wow. That sucks.
And all that happened were these tiny little dots on the actual rim of the trunk. The quote for it was $800.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
Is that a lot or a little?
I feel like that's a ton for like... Literally,
where did you get the quote from?
A local body shop.
Yeah, because it should just be able to, because that should be some type of steel that they can work with.
Well, it's aluminum.
The trunk?
I think the whole body's aluminum, isn't it?
No, definitely not.
Really?
No, yeah. So the Model S and Model X are aluminum, but the Model 3 has two different kinds of mid-grade and high-grade steel and aluminum. Aluminum is all around the battery, and I think a lot of the more structural parts of the chassis, but a lot of the doors and everything are steel. So because I had that damage on the rocker panel on the passenger side, and thankfully they were able to repair it because it wasn't aluminum. If it was aluminum is very, if you guys have ever worked with it, right? It's very like easy to tear and rip, and it's just not a strong metal, like in those ways. So typically body shops won't even touch aluminum.
Yeah.
So
the funny thing is they quoted, they're like, we're just nervous about it. There's so many cameras on it. It's like,
on the trunk?
Just a trunk camera. It's the same as literally any car in the past like 10 years. Like, don't say it's going to be harder because there's cameras everywhere.
It might catch me doing something I shouldn't be doing.
That's probably more like it. Yeah, so first boo-boo with the Tesla, but oh well, not a big deal. I think what we're going to do, actually, we had a friend that got the Performance Model 3 as well that also got the Performance Upgrade package. They're getting that lip spoiler that comes with it, but they don't want to install it, and I'm thinking we might just install it and cover it up. I think it looks okay on the gray cars. I think it looks silly on colored cars, but with ours being gray, throw that little lip spoiler on there and no one will know.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, cover that up. Like I almost did that with my rocker panel damage because my buddies up at Unplugged Performance had just done a like side skirt kind of kit, and they were like, "Well, we could just throw this on top of it. Like, it's not structural." But I'm like, "Yeah, giving this car to my wife, I don't think she's gonna want this like tuner sport looking car." I'm actually gonna get it raised up because of that.
Yeah,
because it's too low.
Well. I feel like I've talked plenty. Who else has a news story already?
Well, do we want to go to electric cars since we're just kind of on this topic right now?
Yeah, because there's lots of space.
Ben, I think you might have done something that has to do with electric cars.
Well, thank you for asking there, Senor Jose. Yeah, so I went to the LA Auto Show, sort of. It actually starts tomorrow for the public, but I got a media invite, and I went to, on Monday, an unveiling for Rivian, who has two vehicles they unveiled, an electric truck and an electric SUV. So they're all electric. Super interesting company. They've started in 2009, just right around when Tesla was getting started as well, but this is really the first time they're doing something publicly. And one of the neat things, the reasons I like that is they already have a 2.6 million square foot facility plant in Normal, Illinois. And it's already being built out and they're retrofitting it. It was an old Mitsubishi plant. And what they showed off were not concepts, but very close to the final production versions of the truck and the SUV.
Cool.
Really impressed with the specs. That's probably the biggest thing. I think when you're coming out with an electric car today and you're saying it'll be ready in 2-3 years and the specs aren't even on par with what's available today, I think you're really missing the mark. And they are nailing it. Both the truck and the SUV on the top end will have over a 400-mile range, which is incredible.
Really?
Yep, 180 kilowatt hour battery for the high end one. 0 to 60 for the mid range one is actually the fastest one. The 0 to 60 on those on the SUV and the truck is 3 seconds flat. So quicker than your Performance Model 3 by, a tenth or so. Yeah. And we're talking an SUV and a truck. Wow. Towing capacity, all those kind of things. They're not somebody corrected me on my video I did about it. They're not like out of this world amazing. Like I think Elon talked about the Tesla truck having a 300,000 pound towing capacity, which is like bananas. But these guys, I think, report 11,000 pounds, or no, I'm sorry. It's 5,000 kilograms. Yeah. So like 11,000 pound and change, towing capacity, which is pretty much on par with like a F-150. It's on the higher end though, so it's still like really capable vehicle. So I got to go to the event, see it up close. Unfortunately, didn't get to ride in it or drive either of them. I'm looking forward to doing that sometime in the near future. But that was like the tip of the iceberg. That was like the first event thing going on, and then from then on, Byton was unveiling a new sedan. Audi has the e-tron GT, which is like the Audi version of the Porsche Taycan. I believe, they're very similar spec, but they're all coming out. So all these major automakers and a lot of startups were there really touting the electric vehicles, and it's cool to see. Again, with the exception of Rivian, I really wasn't impressed with the specs and the stats on the other ones. Like the Audi GT, the e-tron GT, looks beautiful, looks fantastic. I'm sure
really
it's going to be a very well, yeah.
Let's pull that baby up for our YouTube audience, because
yeah, I think it's going to be a well-built car. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to perform well. Anybody that likes Audi it's going to be on par with what they're used to. Unlike, say, when BMW did the i3, and you're like, what is this, right? You're like, this is not a BMW. So it's exciting to see, and more stuff is coming out there. Yeah, there you go. Like, it looks like a sexy car, right? That's like a really awesome,
really good looking car.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely.
Is this the first time it's been revealed? Because I've heard about this for a while.
So kind of camouflaged it a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, well, so there's two things. There's the Audi e-tron SUV, which was revealed, I believe, at the Paris Auto Show recently, and that one came under heavy fire by everybody because, like, the batteries are being delayed. It had a 200-mile or so range, and you're just going, what is this nonsense? And now this is much better. I think it's around 260 or 70-mile range. So, much more capable. I would argue still for the price that I'm sure this will garner, not worth it. Like, in terms of just those specs, it's like buying a brand new, iPhone and having it be like last year's specs. You're like, why am I buying the new one? So I think it's beautiful, and I think they're doing a serious effort here. I still think that batteries are hard to come by, and that's probably why it's limited. But I mean, there was definitely a lot of hype from everyone there around electric cars. So it's coming, and I hope to see more in the future.
I just think this is one of the best looking cars, though.
It is.
I've seen it in a long time. It is just absolutely stunning. This to me is a lot better looking than a Model S, and I love the Model S, but this is just stunning. But one thing that we need to...
You forget that Audi can make a really beautiful car.
Right.
Yeah. They really... And look at the interior of this thing. For those of you on the podcast, sorry, look it up. But man, I love the use of the textiles and stuff. I think that's just really, really attractive.
Yeah.
Very, very 21st century looking,
But show me, though... I'm not sure if I've seen it anywhere on here. Like, what does the frunk look like?
Ooh, I don't know.
I bet you they have an engine in there.
An engine? Not an engine.
Something, man. Have you seen the Chevy Bolt?
Well,
the Chevy Bolt has like a full-on engine up there.
It won't have an engine.
Well, is this on the skateboard platform, or is it?
It'll have a ton of parts that power it, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
It won't have a combustion engine. It'll have a rocket engine. I don't know.
I do want to say, though, one of the things that we've, forget the range, because range, sure, in my case, it was pretty bad. Or like I was at the limit where I was needing every single, mile. But don't forget, they do have the ability to charge a lot faster than a Tesla, even using their fast charging, an 800-volt fast charger, 80% in 20 minutes. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. If you are going on
one of those.
Yeah. Right. That's the challenge, right? Again, it's almost like when we hear about battery tech and it's like, oh, this new, salt battery or glass or this or that. You're like, oh my God, in the lab, it did this crazy stuff. Yes. And you see these things, you're like, oh man, a 350 kilowatt charger. Woo. And you're like, oh, there's like 4 of them in the world. Yeah. You're like, cool. So
for now,
in 5-6 years, maybe we'll have. Now, I think the good thing. So, doesn't Volkswagen own all of these brands?
They own like every brand ever.
Yeah. But don't they own Porsche,
Lamborghini,
Audi? Right, but Porsche, Audi, and who are the other guys here?
Porsche, Audi, Lamborghini, and Volkswagen are definitely like their biggest.
Yeah, and Maserati too, right? But anyway, so the fact that, and I've heard that Volkswagen is going to be making a serious, double digit in the billions investment in charging infrastructure.
The Electrify America thing?
Is that what it is?
I actually saw them building one up in Denton in a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
Didn't they have to kind of do that as kind of part of the Dieselgate stuff?
Yeah.
Right. But I think there's even more coming that hasn't been announced yet. So anyways, like the fact that Audi is a part of Volkswagen and Volkswagen is doing that, and also Volkswagen themselves are making a bunch of new electric cars, which they're really touting as the cheaper kind of mass market ones, which I am super excited about. I would love to really check some of those out. I think, it's awesome. I think that if they can do it, like they have a shot there. But yeah, like I'm still a little short on it though, because I'm like, cool. In 2020, I'll be driving a car that gets 600 miles of range, man. Come on. Like,
yeah, but here's the thing. I think you got to think Volkswagen, there's dealerships literally like everywhere. There's more dealerships. So, well, I think, one of the companies, I think it's Porsche, was planning to have these super fast chargers at every Porsche dealership. And yeah, there's not a ton of Porsche dealerships. Like you couldn't probably transverse the country Porsche dealership to Porsche, but if you did that Audi to Audi dealership or Volkswagen to Volkswagen dealership,
right?
Now we're talking about a charging. Yeah,
right.
And they could do that. A company that size, the biggest car manufacturer in the world, could drop fast chargers at every single one of their dealerships in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. The fact that these guys are a part of Volkswagen gives me hope that it'll work.
Yeah.
But like for the startups and stuff, that was the one criticism I had for Rivian and Byton and NIO and everyone else out there is why are you not partnering with Tesla for the supercharger network? That makes no sense at all to me. Yeah. Why they wouldn't do that other than pride or ego, which I think is a terrible way to grow a startup. Because you haven't made it yet.
They run on the CCS standard. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Rivian had the CCS chargers, which are DC fast chargers, and so they said they can accept up to 160 kilowatt charge. Cool. I don't know. I think the fastest ones, because the EV Go are the ones that do the CCS chargers in the US. And I don't know how fast they go. I don't think they go to 160 though, because that would be
I don't think they
like
can go over 100 yet, do they?
No, I don't think so. I think it's maybe like 60 or 70, which is like an urban Tesla supercharger or about half as fast as a regular Tesla supercharger. So yeah, so it's not there. And then we have Supercharger V3 coming out, which wasn't even on our list to talk about today, but it's kind of like coming out. Did you ask about how fast that was, Tim? Were you wondering that? I think you pinged me about that.
I think I did, but don't think I got anything back about it.
But. So again, with all the electric cars coming out and everything, I'm super stoked on it. I think it's exciting. Charging infrastructure is the big question mark for everybody. Volkswagen seems like it could probably pull it off, but everyone else, I would just highly recommend they all go to Tesla and say, yo, let's do this. I'll pay whatever it costs. Just give my people access to charge.
Well, I think what we're seeing right now, we're probably going to see it for another, 5 years or so, is it's a format war. It's VHS and beta. It's Laserdisc and DVD. It's that all over again. And
which
so
sucks. We never learned that lesson,
now,
do we?
but it'll coalesce. Eventually something's going to win out. And I think that I think that the charging infrastructure is going to really explode once everybody kind of settles on a standard. And then everybody's like, because right now it's like, well, why would I set up a Chatamo charger when Audi's doing a CCS or whatever? It's like, well, are you doing what? How are you? What's going on over here? Are you doing that? It's like eventually they'll get together.
The good news is there's adapters for all these things. Like you can buy a Chatamo adapter for your Tesla. You can buy, I think you can buy a CCS adapter for a Tesla as well. Like on their website, they have just like adapters galore. So it's it's one of those things like electricity is electricity, right? So like getting it in there is just a matter of making the wires connect properly. I think it's the reverse, which is the weird part. Like why doesn't Chevy have a supercharger adapter for Chevy Bolt owners? Right. Yeah, and the problem is because in order to charge a supercharger, it's not just a straight plug. The thing has to like authorize you on the network. So they would have to have a way to know how much you charge and, set up all
how
that.
To charge you for it.
Yeah.
I do have to say I'm glad as a Tesla owner, though. I don't know if I'm too excited about just tripling we've already, us Model 3 owners are probably going to ruin the supercharging network for most owners. But can you imagine if in 3 years everyone's able to charge at a supercharger? I think they'd be quite overwhelmed. Although they could make a lot of money and just keep dumping it into more superchargers.
Yeah. I mean, the supercharger network was not meant to be a profit center at all from owners specifically, but Certainly from other networks. Yeah, I think it would be, and the cost, even with Model 3 owners, the cost alone is a barrier, right? Because if you're thinking about it, like, man, like if you need to charge, fine, don't care, it's cheap, by any standard. But if it's like, if you don't have to charge, I'm definitely not going to,
right?
So I think that like the cost is a healthy balance, or like kind of limiter or barrier to prevent that overuse. Yeah. I think it really only happens, I've noticed, in places like LA, where there's like, I don't know, 12 superchargers or something across LA, and there's just a gazillion people that live there that have Teslas. So they just go there out of convenience because it's like near their work or whatever, right? When I drive out through the desert, to Vegas, and I stop in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody there,
right.
So when you talk road trips and stuff, I don't think it'll ever really be an issue. It's for the local supercharging use, which is kind of a weird scenario anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Joe, speaking of LA and stuff, were you paying attention to the Boring Company debacle? What? I kind of caught a glimpse of it. I don't really know.
Well, NBC did a nice little bit of FUD, it looks like. They posted an article, a blog post, whatever you want to call it, saying that, well, the way they worded it made it sound like like the Boring Company is about to fold or something. Like it said their big LA tunnel project. Ben, you may have it and you might pull it up. But, there it goes.
There we go.
Let's read it. Firefox logo.
Nice screen share, man. I love it.
I'm good at this, really.
Skinny twig. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, Elon Musk's LA freeway tunnel won't see the light of day. I mean, it kind of makes it sound like the Boring Company in general won't see the light of day.
And it also makes it sound like the one that they're already going to be showing off in like a week and a half won't see the light of day almost,
Right.
So Ben, what did Elon respond to that?
Yeah, so he said, this is completely backwards based on what we've learned from the Hawthorne test tunnel. That's the one coming up here in a week and a half. We're moving forward with a much larger tunnel network under LA. Won't need a second test tunnel under Sepulveda, which is a road in LA. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The article, like when I don't know, did Tim, you send that to me or somebody? I totally read it as like, oh my God, the Boring Company's done. They're out of business. What the hell happened? I thought they had this contract in Chicago and they doing all these things. And what about, I have friends coming out for this test track thing. And then thankfully Elon cleared it up. I mean, like this
and why would they do this? This isn't like a public company. It's not like, why would they write a headline like that unless it's just to make it so Elon seems, I don't know, like crazy and
like this is practically lying. Elon Musk's LA freeway tunnel won't see the light of day. Technically
false. It's underground, so it won't see the light of day.
Oh, yes.
So they're actually technically correct there.
Joe has worked in news media before.
I'm an enemy of the people.
Well, and so okay, yeah, dude, what are they thinking?
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But what is the actual story here? I'm confused. What's actually happening and what isn't? They're still doing a tunnel there for the 405 or something?
They've withdrawn the test tunnel, the second test tunnel that they were going to make under Sepulveda Boulevard. Instead, so you can see their statement here. The Boring Company is no longer seeking developments of the Sepulveda test tunnel and instead seeks to construct an operational tunnel at Dodger Stadium. So you're going from test to, we'll skip that. We've already got one. We're going to go to the real thing.
Oh, gosh.
So in other words, they don't need to test it anymore. It's actually proven itself.
Yes.
This makes me so mad because I actually thought it was like, oh, crap. This isn't good news for the Boring Company, and here it's literally just, they're skipping the test phase and just going to build one now?
Yeah.
Go back to Elon's tweet. I'm going to read that again now.
It's kind of like when they skipped over the testing of the stamping machine for the Model 3,
Yeah.
Because they perfected it, so whatever.
Based on what we've learned at Hawthorne Test, we're moving forward with a much larger tunnel network under LA. We won't need a second test tunnel. That is the key. Second test tunnel.
Yeah.
Wow. And now I understand.
But it's so weird because, I mean, so Dennis Romero is the author here. I'm curious if because, you know, the way these things, I understand it to work, something like NBC has probably thousands of reporters, tons of people doing freelance stuff. Somebody probably submitted it and it went through some approval process and here it is. But the question is this guy, Dennis Romero, is he like a full-time staff writer, you know, connected to the main editor and like so is NBC actually doing this, or is it just like NBC as a distribution network doing this, right?
Or how intentional even was the FUD, I guess, you know, how intentional, or was it just bad taste?
To put the tinfoil hat on, you know, the people who he is actually threatening in the other industries, you know, why not take any opportunity to smack him around a little bit, you know?
Yeah. So it's more of an attack on Elon is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And Ben, you highlighted a sentence
it's right there in the
real
headline,
quick.
Elon Musk's LA freeway. It doesn't say the Boring Company tunnel. It says Elon Musk's.
Yeah, and Musk's plans appeared to outrun reality.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, you're right. That is totally just trying to undermine him.
Like they didn't outrun reality. In fact, it's turning out better than initially thought.
Actually, wait, they did outrun reality in a sense, like in the good sense.
Oh.
Why? I don't even want to talk about this anymore. It just makes me mad. I want to be a positive podcast where we get excited about the future.
Well, okay, so it's an exciting thing. And, know, on December 10th or 11th, I forget, I don't know which day they're going to be opening to the public. I'm going. I know a lot of other people, Tesla tubers and people are coming out for that. So, stay tuned. Tesla tubers, that's a thing. Yep. We need our own category. So they're going to let you
actually walk through the tunnel?
I think we get to ride in it. I think you get to ride in one of the pods.
Cool.
Yeah, because it's test rides, and then they're looking for public feedback. So that's essentially the whole thing. So I'm really curious what the pod is going to be like, because we haven't seen really anything in the pod. We've seen a lot of the tunnel. You know, the Elon just Instagram post the machine making it through to the other side. So yeah, it's coming, man. It'll be cool. I don't know how fast it's going to go.
6,000 miles an hour. Calling it now.
Is that, how many kilometers is that? I don't understand.
10,000 kilometers an hour.
Some Europeans mad now.
Sorry.
Well, Tim is a space guy. Come on.
I know. I do love my.
Anytime I say the word mile for any reason in a video, I get these just angry comments. It was like, why? This is supposed to be a science channel.
One of the funny
things. A mile
is
a thing, you know.
Yeah. We'll see, the more comments you get, then the more engagement there is. So, you know.
Yeah.
It's true. Maybe I'll start doing that just to up the controversy.
Have you ever been to Chicago's Miracle Kilometer?
Ooh.
Miracle 1.6 kilometer.
The Miracle Kilometer Deli.
The Scottish guys that are singing, you know, I would walk 500 miles. They're from Europe. Like, they're not saying kilometers.
They're from the UK. Get it right.
I would walk 911 kilometers. Or whatever 500 is.
0.7 kilometers.
So in the UK, don't they use miles, or am I?
The UK does, yeah. But they're kind of, they're so intermixed that you can't even.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody know what they're doing over there.
Them.
Yeah.
They drive on the wrong side of the road, so.
Hey, I got a good one. How about, speaking of miles and distances, this is the best segue I'll ever have. Oh, guys, do you remember what happened on Monday?
Monday. WWE?
The Mars Insight Lander landed very far away from us. Very many miles or kilometers away. So, yeah, how about that? It was
So what is this thing?
This was the Mars Insight rover. Lander, sorry. I said the rover.
I know, we keep saying rover.
Yeah, so does it not rove? It just hangs out where it landed?
No rove, just lands. Not. It's a lander, no wheels, just some legs.
So then did the rover not land?
There was no rover on this mission. What?
No, so the actual Mars rover, so it didn't land, because then it would be a lander. How did it get there?
It has to land and then it can
Opportunity rover landed, but it's not a lander. It's It's a rover. Okay, anyway.
Come on, NASA.
Anyway, check this out. This was awesome. This was the first time we've gone to Mars since 2012. Anyone has successfully, because there was the Schiaparelli lander the ESA sent in, when was that, 2016, that unfortunately did not work out. So this is the first time we've successfully landed something on Mars since Curiosity. It's been that long since we've landed something on Mars. And it went off absolutely perfect. And it should have, because we've already landed almost this exact spacecraft on Mars. The Phoenix lander was the exact same like platform. Basically, they changed out which instruments are on the tabletop here. But it was a proven concept, which is good. I totally support that. Use common, just redo it if it worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they nailed it, and they landed in a very flat area of Mars. It's actually kind of close to Curiosity, but yet that's still really, 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 really far away from Curiosity. I don't think Curiosity could ever get there. So I still want to see that, though. 2 rovers hanging out, taking pictures of each other someday. That's my life goal.
A selfie, a roadie.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's there. It's gonna do some really exciting things, actually. And it's the first one that will be measuring Mars quakes, not earthquakes, because it's not on Earth. They're Mars quakes, using a really sensitive seismometer. Really, really sensitive seismometer. Like a butterfly could land on that thing, and it would be able to sense that. And yet,
cool.
it's still
that would be really weird.
That would be really weird.
Seems like that would be the best news that came out of the entire thing.
It turns out that there was actually butterflies. We couldn't detect them before.
We thought it was a Mars quake, but it was a butterfly, so ignore it. That doesn't mean anything.
I'm glad we have this butterfly detector. But it does have that, which is crazy to think, though. Think about a seismometer. It's sensitive enough to sense something like that, but it still was, rugged enough to survive launch and landing. Those are pretty extreme. There's 12 Gs, I think, at one point, or 10 or something. 12 Gs during reentry, yet it's sensitive enough to sense a butterfly touching it. That's insane. But it also has a probe, which will go down 5 meters, about 15 feet below the surface, and actually get into kind of into the, that's not a ton as far as like the actual depth of Mars, but it's the first time we're really getting beyond just the very, very surface, and hopefully can start measuring some of the temperatures, which will help us understand more about water, where water went, where it's going, if it's still there, yada, yada. It's just more data. Data is always a good thing. And then we're also measuring the planet's wobble via the Doppler effect, basically, and a really sensitive instrument there, too. But I think the thing that I was most excited about with this mission is, I don't even know if I have it pulled up, but basically they took along with it 2 CubeSats. And normally CubeSats, I hate to say it, I shouldn't say this, because I do support like small space, but CubeSats tend to not be that exciting to me. Like,
what's a CubeSat?
A CubeSat's just any satellite that fits in there's different sizes, like 1U, 2U. They're tiny satellites. They're not nanosats, but they're
cube in
CubeSats.
space.
They're about the size of like a shoebox. Would be like a 1U CubeSat size. And these were 2U, I believe. They were about the size of a briefcase. There were 2 of them. They're not like on, I don't know. To me, normally it's like, oh, what's it going to do? But this was actually really cool. What they did is they ejected them and they coasted all the way out to Mars with the lander, right? And their only job was to relay and be communication for entry, descent, and landing for the InSight lander. And normally, these rovers have anything landing on Mars typically has like a blackout period, and it has to send its signal out to something, and there has to be a satellite within the same orbit to be able to receive the signal from the lander. And this way, it ensured that no matter what, it was a test. It was a total test. It was not reliant on anything, but these little babies could basically receive the signals and still transmit them all the way back to Earth. Which is really good because we could send a pair like this with every future mission and at least get some extra communications during that very critical period.
Just as it's coming down, huh?
As it's coming in, exactly. And it's just, we can't do anything. It's not going to do 2-way communication. It's not going to change anything. But just for, people waiting here back on Earth going like, oh, is it okay? Like, can you imagine when we send humans? And if you had a 1-hour blackout period, a 1 hour of communication blackout,
like, what's
not
going on?
knowing if people were safe or not. Like this was a great technology demonstrator for that. So congrats to the Marco A and Marco B.
How quick is the relay now?
So they're continuing to fly by, and I believe their systems are actually turned off already. So they were literally only there was an 8-minute delay between between communications, just in light speed, basically. But now the InSight can directly communicate with Earth when it's in line with Earth. But it also, when it's not, I think for the most part these landers just upload directly. But if they need to relay or bounce something off, I think they can use like the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter or a few other orbiters using the Deep Space Network to be able to do that.
Yeah, it seems like there might be an opportunity there way before we send a person there to have a fairly robust communication network built out. Yes. You know, I don't know what that looks like, but there could be some kind of Starlink type system for Mars. It doesn't need to be nearly as capable as the Starlink here, but you know, some kind of happy medium. You know, where
I'm kind of surprised they don't already have at least a small constellation of satellites that relay information from the landers and stuff. Does that not exist?
Nothing. Here's a list of. Let me show you guys this.
So like if Curiosity sends something to Earth, it comes straight from Curiosity all the way to Earth.
I believe most of the time it does that.
Wow. Okay. I always assumed it was, wow.
These are the only things in orbit right now. Mars Odyssey, Mars Express, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Mars Orbiter Mission, Maven, and the EXO Trace Gas Orbiter. Those are the only things actively. These other things are orbiters as well, but they are dead. So the green ones are the only ones that are still active. So there's 6?
Yeah.
So if Curiosity is on Mars and Mars is rotating, so when it's night, Curiosity can't communicate.
Correct. Well, not necessarily night, because there's, depending on where it's at compared to the alignment of Earth. You know, because Earth isn't always in line with the sun compared to Mars. So it would have. But
I'm saying if it's on the other side of Mars, that it can't send a signal through Mars.
Correct.
To Earth.
So I believe Curiosity sleeps or doesn't transmit. I'm speaking a little bit without knowing for sure, which is always a dangerous thing. But it's my understanding that they tend to use a direct uplink to the Deep Space Network once these vehicles land. But they have the ability to do a dog leg. The problem is, like, say with the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, for instance, it can't directly relay the information. It has to receive it and then spit it back out. There's not the ability to do a direct relay with the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. So I know that depending on certain situations, they can use certain things. But I think for the most part, once the landers are down, I think they use direct communication.
Wow.
If someone wants to look that up real quick while I continue to rant about other things, put my life
I have
at
a question real quick, and I'm just curious if you know this, Tim. Like, so it's a 7-minute delay?
There's a 7-minute of entry, but there's about currently, and typically most rendezvous orbits is like 8 to 9 minute delay.
Just for the signal to get here.
Just for the signal to get here.
So at NASA, like, you know, I was watching the InSight landing right along with you, and they're, you know, watching the telemetry, and they're all getting all jacked and everything. Do they have 2 clocks? One where it's like, okay, it has already landed, but it's going to be another 8 minutes before we get the signal for it. Like, is there a second clock?
Like relativity almost?
For like a real-time clock? Yeah, like a relativity clock.
To make up for relativity, that's a good question.
Would they even be useful for them? I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, it wouldn't be useful, I don't think. But think about it. There is actually some drift. For the past 6 months, they've now changed time by 8 minutes. So is there a constant shifting of the mission clock? Somebody out there, let us know.
NASA, hit us up.
I've got some people I can talk to. I'll try to get the answer. Let's talk about that next show. I've never thought about that. Like, how does the clock work? Is there?
I mean, I just like when, I was watching your live stream actually, and you were talking about like, that, while we were watching the little thing, you're like, it's already there. Like, whether it crashed, whether it landed, it's already happened. We're just kind of waiting for the information to catch up. And I'm just wondering if like NASA keeps track of that.
So, yeah,
I mean, I know they're aware of it. Of course, they're aware of it. But
right.
do they have their own like second?
Can you
clock
imagine
for that?
how hard it is to program the timing inputs and things with these vehicles, having to factor in those delays and things? Like, these people are so stinking smart to have to factor all of that stuff in. I mean, it's
like rocket science or something.
Lander science, to be
lander
accurate.
science.
Well, while we're talking about rockets, doesn't SpaceX have a thing coming up?
Yes, good segue. Yes, they do. I can't wait to say this. I'll probably mess it up. But SpaceX, for the first time, here, I'll actually read it here. For the first time, SpaceX will be reflying a booster twice, making it the third time this rocket flies. Are you confused? For the first time, SpaceX will refly a rocket twice, making it the third time this rocket will fly.
Actually, I'm quite lost.
So this is the first time any of their rockets have flown more than twice? This will be the first time it flies
3 times.
So this is the second reflight.
Second reflight.
Making the third actual flight.
Exactly.
Because the first flight was not a reflight, it was the first flight.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I'm guessing I'm not the only one that just thought they kept reusing the same one the whole time.
Oh, no. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because
I seriously thought
they've only made one rocket so far and just keep reusing it.
I mean, because they launched so often, I assumed it was like, yeah, whatever. Like,
well, that's their goal, and that's the industry's goal is to do that, where you have very few vehicles servicing your entire manifest. Kind of like the space shuttle. There's 5 of them that did 135 missions between them. You know, that's the idea for sure, is to use these boosters 10 to 100 times eventually. But we're step by step so far. The first time they reused one was, I believe, like March 30th of 2017 for the SES-10 mission. Was the first time they ever reflew a booster. Ever. That was the first time a liquid-fueled orbital class rocket was reflown for a mission. So that's not that far ago. That's not even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then they've reflown like, I think I actually have it here on my website. This is the 18th. So this will be the 18th reflight of a booster.
okay.
Between like all of probably, 9 boosters basically, or 8 boosters.
So 8 of them have reflown.
Correct.
And we've never done one a third time.
Correct.
Thrice flown.
Thrice flown booster. This is the first thrice flown booster. Say that 5 times fast. First thrice flown booster.
There you go.
I want to hear you guys say it. First thrice flown booster.
First thrice flown booster. Nailed it.
Tercero vez que vuela.
Oh, here comes the Spanish, Mr. Santiago. So, but yeah, this is exciting for everyone, I think, because this is still further proving that these rockets are going to be properly reusable and not refurbishable. You know, that's definitely the concern about this whole program, about any reusability attempts in space, because people always quote the space shuttle and say, we tried reusing the space shuttle and it wound up being crazy expensive. So, they quote that as saying like, well, that's why the Falcon 9, it won't end up being worth it. They'll scrap the reusability of it and they'll just end up building expendable rockets. We've seen this before. Move on.
Yeah.
But the difference is, and I've done a video really in depth about this topic, because people, and then of course I get criticized, well, you can't compare the two. I'm like, I'm not the one comparing the two. As people saying this, they are very different vehicles. The biggest thing though is that SpaceX is reusing the 2/3 of the rocket, the first portion. And fortunately for SpaceX and for physics, that's also the portion of the rocket that receives the least punishment. It's actually, in a sense, although it's the biggest and most difficult probably in that scale to recover, it is the portion that, since it's not entering at such a high speed, it doesn't take as big of a punishment. If you're coming in from orbit, you're going 4 times faster. That's 64 times the amount of heat that actually is applied to the vehicle thanks to the coming in at velocity. Heat rises with velocity cubed, not squared. So times itself. So that being said, sorry, that's a long rant, but basically this first stage is easier as far as refurbishment. Like it doesn't heat up as much. So, heat shielding on it doesn't need to be nearly as robust as a vehicle that re-enters from orbit. So really, this is a lot more attainable than trying to recover, say, the space shuttle, which had to, come in at 27,000 kilometers an hour, 17,500 miles an hour. It had to re-enter and bleed off all that speed, and it'd heat up like crazy due to the compression of the atmosphere. And yeah, this doesn't have nearly as much of that to fight.
And didn't they scrap the second stage recovery attempts? Elon just tweeted that, right?
Who knows?
The mini BFR or BFS.
This stuff is
or Enterprise, or wait, what is it? Starship?
Starship, yeah.
NCC 1701.
Jefferson Starship was in it.
I have so many people ask me, when are you going to do a video about Starship? I'm like, what am I going to do a video about? It'll be 4 seconds. SpaceX changed the name of BFS to Starship. Bye. That's all we know.
What about BFR? That's also
super heavy. Sorry, 8-second video.
Falcon
SpaceX
Super Heavy?
changed the name of the booster to the Super Heavy, and they changed the name of the spaceship to Starship. Done. I mean, that's all we know so far,
And by the time you post it, it's changed again.
Exactly. So I try to hold off on just making videos based entirely off Elon's tweets, because that could be a job on its own. Kind of like us. Hey,
yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Thanks for dogging on my whole channel there, Tim. Appreciate that.
But with this stuff, so here's my theory. He kind of made it sound like they're not really working on like second stage recovery, and like they're fast tracking this new development. It's all crazy, it's counterintuitive, and he keeps using words like, we've never done anything like this, and all these different things. I have no idea anymore, to be honest. And I'm someone that keeps up with this stuff as well as I possibly can. It's confusing, and I don't doubt that they'll probably have to demonstrate some technology on an upper stage of a Falcon 9 still. It still makes sense to test some heat shield materials. Still makes sense to test a few things that can only be tested in real-world applications. I can see some of those things being tacked on to an upper stage of a Falcon 9 at some point. But I like the idea of it being fast-tracked. I don't know what they were doing before. To me, it seems like that's their only path forward at this point anyway. So fast-tracking it from here, like, how do you fast-track it more?
The express lane. It's the express track.
Like, I don't quite get that.
Ludicrous track.
So hopefully it means maybe this means that they're done with their initial design. And because to me, the last time they did that announcement, the Dear Moon thing that I attended in, what was that, September? To me, that was almost like a bad thing because it had changed so much. To me, it meant like, you guys aren't even close to building hardware. Yeah. Seeing that in the past, every time we see this thing, it's like a totally different vehicle. You're not seeing any actual, like, here's the actual, avionics we're going to use. Here's what we're going to be, and they don't owe us those things. But the fact that it was changing so much was definitely a little bit concerning. And now I feel like I have a little bit more confidence that perhaps maybe they figured out that initial design phase and they're ready to move forward on some stuff. They keep saying next year they're going to fly something.
Grasshopper test this year, right?
Yeah, or 2019.
Or this coming year.
Yeah. Supposedly, I mean, last we heard, and he makes it sound like we're going to start seeing some kind of hops with the Starship now. I don't know. It seems like it's good, but I'm waiting to really have him do that AMA or some kind of interview with somebody that can get more information out of him or
somebody could actually ask questions about that. Somebody with a good eye.
With one good eye. That's
at
the
least
key.
One. Yeah.
Just one. Didn't say good eyes. But anyway, yeah. So
and then write a headline that says BFS is completely falling apart and Elon is found in a dumpster.
You know what? You could write that. You could write that title. BFR will never fly.
Hey, actually, here's my
NBC,
theory.
hire me.
Ready? I think I may have just unlocked it. I was thinking about this earlier, but now I think I truly unlocked it now that you said that. I guarantee the reason they changed it right now is they're dealing with Congress a lot on funding for potentially a NASA commercial partnership going back to the moon. And I guarantee Blue Origin and SpaceX are both vying for that contract. Yeah. And we're going to hear more about that tomorrow, actually. That being said, speaking in front of Congress, calling it the BFR, and they're like, what's that? You're like, the big Falcon rocket, like, I guarantee they changed it because of all of this stuff, and just so they have a more, it'll always be BFR, I think, in our hearts, but Super Heavy and Starship definitely make more sense than putting the F word in the middle of your rocket. Yeah,
I'm a fan. I think, I was talking to some friends actually at the LA Auto Show stuff, and I'm like, I love Elon's attitude, kind of anti-establishment in a lot of ways, and in his approach. But you've become such an inspirational public figure to the next generation of scientists and explorers and stuff that I think you've actually lost the right to do those things. I think you are not allowed to smoke weed on a podcast. You are not allowed to name things provocative names, because to us as adults, it's fine. Like, we laugh about it, but to kids, that is what they are going to see, and I don't think that's the best example. So maybe that's just the dad in me speaking about it.
Dad in you.
But to the same extent about talking to Congress about it, like I do feel like it's, for something like this that is super important, you don't want to go down in history with some kind of childish stuff that you were doing. You know what I mean?
But to me, for me, that's what the company behind him is kind of for. I appreciate that gesture, that attitude, that candidness, almost. I think that's fun, and I think that's refreshing, and I think it is something that people actually relate to, and they say, I want to work for a company where the guy tries to name the cars SEX. That's funny. It's stupid, but it's funny. It's immature, but it's not some corporate we have to call this one the Binera, and you're like, what's that? Why? What?
Well, we have two different audiences. You have the public that enjoys a real life human being with a sense of humor that does stuff like that. And then you have the people with the money in Congress that you have to button up for, I think they can do both. And that's basically what's happening right now, is he starts off with the fun thing, and then it's like, all right, well, let's okay, we got to go talk to James Inhofe over here, so we might as well change it to something, star thing, whatever. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening right now, I think.
I think that's a healthy balance, personally. I think for us fans that are my parents, the general public, they haven't heard the word BFR. They don't know what that means. They don't care. But us livid fans are like, that's hilarious, that's fun. And now the public will see the more serious. Most people didn't realize the Model 3 was the Model E, because it would have spelled sex.
Yeah. Well, and then the Model Y.
Yeah, and then the Model Y, sexy.
Right.
And it's still going to do that because, of course, they just have the dashes, the 3 dashes. So,
well, they got sued. They can't use that either.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's why you don't see it on the car. Well, it's hidden on the car.
Yeah, there's little hidden spots.
Yeah.
Why can't they?
Adidas has that trademark.
3 dashes.
We own 3 lines. You can't use 3 lines. We own 3 lines.
Yeah.
We've had 3 lines in our family tree. This reminds me, did I ever tell you guys about the time I tried to sell the moon on eBay when I was probably 17 years old? And my reasoning was, it shows up to all of our family reunions, so I'm pretty sure it belongs to us. And it started getting a lot of traction. It got up to $200, and then they took it down because it wasn't an actual listing. You weren't selling anything. So I should have, if I was smart, I would have had a piece of paper that says, you own the moon or something, But I wasn't that smart back then. Yeah. So next time.
That's hilarious.
Yep. So there's that story. Well, guys, this ended up not being as long of a podcast as I thought. Did we get through everything?
I think we did. I think we got through most of it.
I was just that excited to talk to you guys again. It's just been
so long. There was the subject of the Volt going away. GM and the Volt and whatnot. There was that.
Yeah. And actually, I don't know. I'm always confused between the Volt and the Bolt. The Volt's their hybrid.
Okay. Their plug-in hybrid.
PHEV, they call it.
Yeah. So what happened? I mean, my story here. My editor. I'm blanking on my editor's name. This is Nick. Wow. And Nick's a friend of mine too. I haven't had enough coffee. Sorry,
Wait, is
Nick.
his name Nick?
Yeah.
I just remembered it for you.
Yeah. I love you, Nick. No, but he sent me a thing in Facebook that was like, he was kind of angry because it said that the Volt was going away, and this wasn't what he sent me, but this is the Electric article. But but he was like, oh, it looks like they're killing the Volt. And then to him, it looked like they're getting rid of their electric car. And I was like, well, this might be a good thing because the Volt is the hybrid and the Bolt is the pure electric one. And then, I look at this article from Electrek and it talks about how they're actually kind of doubling down on their EV investment. And that's why they're getting rid of the Volt, because people are more interested in pure electric. So it's actually a good news. The bad news is that they are closing some plants. They're laying off 15,000 employees and closing down 5 factories, which is bad. Nobody needs, losing jobs is bad. Let's just say it. But it's a restructuring, and according to this article anyway, it's restructuring to become more electric, which is good. I don't know why they have to lay off people though, but I guess they just have to. I don't know. I don't know the inside.
They need to make profit for the end of the year.
Well, yeah. And
their stock jumped like 12% after they announced the layoffs.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah. I understand why.
Yeah,
but
you can't pay people to twiddle thumbs if those factories are closed. Obviously, that's just corporate America, man. That's the markets.
So right there, just scroll down just a little bit there. It says, so the company announced several new electric car vehicles to launch in the next few years: 5 crossovers, 2 minivans, 7 SUVs, and more. That's exciting. And so like to sort of counter what you're saying, Ben, when you talk about how if they are announcing a car that's not going to come out for a few years and the specs are not as good as say a Model 3 or a Tesla, I get where you're going with that, but I feel like the specs aren't as important as the price to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like if they could actually get 30,000 and below and only have 200 miles of range or something like that, that would still be huge for people who just,
yeah. I think that's
the amount I'm spending on my car is insane. And people remind me of that on a regular basis. So
that's definitely someone like GM or Ford or Volkswagen could do probably ahead of Tesla.
Well, that would be a good thing to me.
So
absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying. And to counter it, I would say that you can buy a used Tesla for around that same price and have all of those features.
I saw that video you made. It's a good point.
Scroll down through this list a little bit. I want to see this.
Okay, so right now, I'm just pulling up, if you guys are listening, if you go to tesla.com/used, it'll redirect to your local area, wherever that is, assuming you live in one where they have them. And I'm showing Model S's here, a 2013 Model S60. That is the car I have. That is my Model S. I drove into work today. I have less miles on it than this, but $34,800. So 208 mile range. That's not true on this car. There's no way, but it's close to 200 miles, we'll say. 0 to 60, 5.5 seconds. Pretty dang quick. Power lift gate, GPS, blah, 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 free supercharging. Cool. 2014 Model S85. That's a step up, 265 mile range. Same kind of features, free supercharging. No autopilot on either of these, but, I would be shocked if you saw a $20,000 EV from GM or somebody that had something like autopilot. So, I guess like when I'm looking at this, these are good, man. Like especially in the story behind this, why these exist is Tesla offered originally 3-year leases in 2015, and then in 2016 they offered 2-year leases on Model S's and Model X's, and so those are all coming due, and so you're going to get a huge influx. In fact, they just partnered with a new company to help them with their used market. So if you guys are looking to get into a Tesla and even a Model 3, because I think the cheapest one still you can buy is like 46,000 or something. You're still like for $10,000 less than that, you can get a Model S with a decent. That's a very capable, very good car still.
But of course, counterpoint here. Don't forget these are now 4 or 5 year old cars. You're probably coming up on. You're coming out of warranty for like the door handles don't pop out and things like this stop working.
You get a new warranty with these.
A new warranty.
Yep. So, for example, they just ordered new taillights for me because I have the ones that had the issue with condensation building up inside of them, and they ordered a whole new door panel because there was like a bubble in part of the like leather or whatever that was a touch. So yeah, and also remember the battery warranty. Here's a funny side note about myths that people think with because I know the original like Priuses and Nissan Leafs had issues with batteries that had to be replaced and they were super expensive. Teslas have 8-year battery warranties, infinite miles. the first ever Tesla Model S still has 2 full years of warranty left on the battery. So whatever, so it's a complete, you know, and I do have a friend that had his battery replaced because of warranty. He abused it and had issues, and they replaced it for free. And guess what? They actually upgraded him from a 60 to a 75. So there you go. So
I do have to say, at least, you know, if you're buying a 2013 or 2014-year-old car like this, the depreciation on it would be so small compared to, like, I mean, even a new $30,000 EV will, you know, you'll lose $5,000 taking it off the lot, but these would probably be a more sound investment in that sense, in the depreciation sense.
Exactly. Yep. And so, like, when I bought my 2013 Model S 60, I bought it in 2016. It had, I think, under 10,000 miles on it. So it was just not driven at all. And I bought it for $50,000. And, you know, now it's probably, I don't know, $40,000. Like a lot of that depreciation already occurred. You're right. So that's
pretty good for a car to own a car for a few years, you know, 3-4 years and only have, you know, that amount of depreciation is pretty impressive.
Yeah. But like, check this out. So $41,000, 2015 Model S 70. This one you might be able to upgrade to a bigger battery via software. Because I don't remember when they had that. It was like a very narrow window, but this sounds like one of them. 230 mile range regardless, with autopilot and free supercharging. This one has the rear facing seats. That's super cool. So yeah, look at that, $41,000. So this is cheaper, I believe, unless, you know, with the exception of the tax credits and stuff, cheaper than you would get a new Model 3 for. And 35,000 miles is not much on a car like this. I mean, like, this is a good buy. Like, so yeah, you know, hey, fine, GM, everyone coming out with new cars. I'm all for it. But unless you're below $20,000, I, you know, if you're pushing to that $30,000 price range, these used Teslas with a new flood of them hitting the market, I think is going to be by.
Yeah, I think when there's a mature used market, that's going to really change how many people are actually capable of driving these things.
Yeah, like the Model 3, for example. If you can get a $20,000 Model 3 in a couple of years, that's going to be a hell of a buy. That's going to be a really good value, I think, because these things are going to last absolutely forever.
Yeah, totally.
I do have one last one for you guys on this note.
Ooh,
it's a little surprise. Let's see if I can share this. Maybe. There we go. Are you guys seeing a chart?
Yes.
Ooh, fancy.
That looks pretty.
Pretty colors.
Yay. So if you guys are listening and not watching, we're looking at the Tesla supercharger network growth from its inception in 2012 until today. Elon, because Tim, we had talked about this, about potentially other EVs or even Model 3s kind of saturating and kind of overcrowding them. And that definitely happens in some areas. Elon just recently on Twitter said again that they will be doubling the number of supercharging stalls in the next year. They also said that last year, and they didn't quite get it, but, you know, going back to the original unveiling, you know, there were 88 stalls back in 2012. Here at the close to the end of 2018, I think we're at 11,500. And if you guys can see that, let me hide that. Yeah, 11,427 stalls as of November. So a huge amount of growth. Now these are also technically user reported. I have reached out to Tesla to say, can you just give us this data? Like, this seems pretty benign, right? Like, just like, you already have a map. I could probably build a tool to scrape it from your website, but just why don't you give us an API?
Right.
So anyway, so you know, that's growing. Now, if that doubles, imagine, you know, 22,000 something stalls would be a huge number. But if you look at the actual growth from last year to this year, it was only a 33% growth. So not nearly 100% growth like what they had promised. Now, I will say, I know from firsthand experience here in San Diego, we've opened 2 big stations in the past, I don't know, say 4 months or something like that. And then the next year, I've talked to the guys that run it in the SoCal region. They said in San Diego alone, they're opening 10 new sites and over 100 new stalls just in San Diego. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some truth to that. To you know, maybe close to 100% growth. So good things on the horizon here.
Notice, you said it's 30% growth, yet they had 300% growth in their total vehicle, or was it 200% growth in vehicles?
200 or
200.
well, it'd be you mean in terms
or
of
100? Sorry, they doubled the amount of cars on the road, right?
Right. It'd be 100% growth, right? Yeah.
So they're definitely you can see a pinch. A user would definitely.
It makes sense. Keep in mind though that over 90% of the time people are charging at home.
Yeah.
So
the holidays I could see it being issues,
certain times a year, certain areas. So for example, New York is a problem. People that live in Manhattan, any of the boroughs, it's a problem. There needs to be double, triple the amount of superchargers available there because, I mean, first off, not a lot of people own cars, but there are a lot of people in New York with a lot of money that want one of these things, and they need a place to do it. And very few of those people have garages with them,
right?
Or even a place that they could pay for to go into. So it's an issue for sure. In places like that, LA is also an example where it's just so many people, so many Teslas. You need to double that. But St. Louis probably don't need to double that. Or other places that aren't as populated with Teslas. So I think it's going to be okay. I mean, it's growing pains, and then fast forward a few years when the Model Y starts getting delivered in droves, we'll be in the same boat again, right?
Yeah, I hope it kind of goes like they deliver a car for a year, then they catch up on supercharging for a year, then they deliver a car for a year,
But think also that, now that the Model 3 is kind of in full swing and production is stabilized at 5,000 to 6,000 or maybe more per week, we're looking at overall Tesla sales or Tesla deliveries next year of north of like 300 something thousand vehicles. So, and also, but some of those are going to be to Europe and places like that. But I mean, we're seeing, so it's like they have a new car coming out, they start producing it. It's not like that trails off at all. Like it keeps going, right? It's just going to stop, exponentially growing, but that rate is going to, we're going to have 1 million Teslas on the road within a couple of years for sure. Yeah. And so the supercharger network has to just continue to double every single year to try to keep up, I think.
Well, and
crazy.
You don't have to use a supercharger network. You can use any of these others that are coming up too, like the Electrify America and EVgo and those kinds of things.
That'll help. For me, I wish I could just directly invest in one of those other companies because, that's a no-brainer.
I feel like there's a gold mine there, honestly.
Like what?
Over the next
is this
10
taking
years?
so long? I know you don't want to be the ones that are out there really early with a huge infrastructure, no one using it, and you're sitting on an asset for like 2 years. But at the same time, that it's definitely like this snowballing effect because once there is more of an infrastructure, more people will buy electric cars. Once more people, it's just this total thing. And I think I can't wait for more options.
It was a thing when I'm sitting at the Denton supercharger and I'm looking over and there's something being built in the Walmart parking lot and I don't know what it is and I'm seeing it as I'm sitting at a supercharger and then I go over and look and it's another charging station for Electrify America. It was like, oh wow,
that's cool.
It's
what I'm really interested in or excited about is called Volta. Have you heard of them?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you pointed that out to me one time.
It's a free not supercharging, level 2 charging, but free. And they have these big kind of, imagine, like the supercharger thing, a sign that big essentially, but it has an ad on it. And so, you get to charge for free and they show ads. So, and they're like a Google venture, like they got money from Google and stuff. So yeah.
Is it like a video or is it literally just like a
No, it's like a static image. I don't know if it looks digital, but it doesn't change. It's not like a video or anything like that. So
they can make enough revenue through that?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
But when there's a gazillion of them,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's interesting.
I think gazillion is a real number too, isn't it?
Definitely. Definitely.
Somewhere up there. I wanted to follow up just real quick, Ben, on what we talked about at TeslaCon when we were chatting that day. You were asking about where I grew up, small town. And I was saying that my dad was really interested in seeing my car. He was like really excited as I was waiting for it, texting me every other day. Have you got it yet? Have you got it yet? Anyway, you were asking if he had ever actually seen a Tesla, or if there were any out there in that part of the world, because it's a really small town, West Texas. And anyway, I talked to him the other day. And I figured he'd never been in one or ridden in one, So I brought that up, and he was like, "No, I've never been in one." I said, "Well, you've seen one though, right?" Because I mean, he lives in a really small town, but it's near Wichita Falls, which is like 100,000 people. So I figured somebody in Wichita Falls probably has a Tesla. Anyway, he was like, "No, I've never even seen one. He's only seen pictures of them."
Wow.
Really?
And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm going, "Wow." And so apparently the word's getting out that I'm going to be coming in at Christmas with a Tesla, and like people are kind of like getting all excited about it.
Are there people like waiting in his driveway?
Yeah, no, there's going to be like a big banner.
Welcome Tesla.
Actually, they'll probably still up with their shotguns and get that hippie crap out of here. No,
and you'll just zip right by him.
Yeah, no, but apparently there's some kid that my aunt used to babysit, and he's like really into cars, and he loves Tesla. And when he found out that so basically my dad was like, "Would you mind if this kid came over and we rode?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." Yeah, he can't use my referral code, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm that guy that like I'll see someone. I think I've given 3 complete strangers rides now, where someone's been gawking at it. Like one guy. Was gawking at it, and you could just tell we were walking up to it, and he was like taking a picture. I go, "Have you seen one of these yet?" And he goes, "No, this is the first Model 3 I've seen." I knew he was wearing an engineering badge from John Deere, which is where my dad used to work. So I like talked to him about John Deere, and I was like, "Oh," and I'm like, "You thinking about this?" So then I gave him a ride for like 10 minutes, and like gave him the whole spiel, and he's like, "Yeah, we've really been thinking about one of these," and so I've done that. I also pulled into the street there. College kids down the street playing football, and they were kind of staring at it as I walked by. So I got out, parked it in the driveway, and just kind of go, "You guys want to come look at this? You seem pretty interested." And they're like, "Yeah." Nice. So I'm definitely like pro if I'm not busy. Like, people.
You need like
there's
a
so many
card
of them here in
with your
Dallas.
referral
Nobody even
code.
looks twice at him here, but it'll be funny to take it to my family, not just where my dad lives, but also like seeing in-laws and stuff where they don't really see him that much. I'm going to be giving a lot of rides at Christmas, it looks like.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. It's fun stuff, guys. Fun stuff. What are you guys working on this week?
I'm going to Mexico.
You might like what I'm doing. I'm working on video on the ESA.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's the like main thing? Are you talking about like the Ariane, or are you talking about like their missions?
Talking about the Ariane a little bit. Bepi Colombo is a big part of it, and why they're going to Mercury and why that's important.
Sweet. I like that. I'm excited for that.
I think you'll like it a lot.
Yeah, I think I will too.
You like it a lot.
I love it. Ben, what are you doing? You're going to Mexico?
Going to Mexico, yeah.
Are you sure? Isn't there
It's like a 5-mile drive, isn't it?
Yep.
Isn't there like a border closing thing going on or something too?
Yeah, I actually had friends that were in line coming back when the border closed on Sunday, so they had to go over to the other border crossing. Going tomorrow. Going to Buddy's birthday, so we're going to be down there on the beach and of course, cool. It's the only storm we've had all year. It's raining the entire time, but hey, we'll be kid free for the weekend, which will be nice.
Ooh, that is nice. That is nice, guys. Guess what I did for my?
You did your video.
It happened. I finally got the cursed canceled video out there. One of them. I turned it into 4 because it's now over like 25 pages of scripting. So I shot part 1 and part 2 already. Got part 1 out. I'm gonna start working on part 2, but I'm gonna kind of intermix them like every other week. Drop one of the canceled. My goal is to
film the whole thing already.
Just 2 of them. So I shot 2 out of 4, and my goal is to have all 4 out by the end of the year. And then like 3 or 4 other videos in between. So I'm going to be, December's my because I had all that, I finally got my new shop up. I finally got my new, my music up online. I've had a bunch of I've been traveling a bunch. So I haven't really had a good time to just really churn out videos. And I am hungry. So get ready. There's going to be way too much content coming out on my end. But they're videos that I'm really, really excited about. And I'm having a lot of fun working on them. So I'm fired up, ready to go.
Get it
done.
How about that?
It.
Well,
Joe, I loved your cloning video, by the way.
Oh, I guess we haven't talked since then. Yeah,
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh man, good. It reminded me what Multiplicity was a movie, right?
I know. I stole from that a little bit, I guess.
I remember that. That was a classic.
Good.
Oh. Well, guys, as always, leave us a review.
Yeah.
and
Thanks for
tell us
listening.
some comments. Tell us what we got wrong about Mars landers communicating directly through the Deep Space Network. I can't wait to hear all about how wrong I am on that. But yeah, and of course, the outro is some Everyday Astronaut music, which now you can get on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, wherever you listen to music. You can find Maximum Aerodynamic Pressure by Everyday Astronaut.
Ooh.
Plug.
Plug, 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 plug.
All right, guys. Until then, we'll see you
In
our ludicrous future.
That's never going to be
plan
good. That's never going to be good.
That's never going to work.